Good afternoon, everyone. Justin, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Jayanti. Dr. Jayanti is here. Yeah.
This is Seena, Miss Seena from St. Mary's College.
Yeah, Seena, yes. I was checking whether the resource person is here.
Yes,
she's right there.
Right. So I just saw that, ma'am, we are so happy to have you here.
My
Sir,
pleasure.
shall we begin by sharp 3 o'clock? Hello, sir.
So everyone and everything is ready, we can.
Yes, it's 1 more minute to 3. So let's wait one more minute. Mary ma'am, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Hello everyone, shall we begin? Hope everybody is okay and ready for the session. Bindu ma'am, Justin sir, Mary ma'am, shall we begin?
Yes,
Yes,
Seena.
please.
Yes, Seena.
Okay, thank you.
Let's start. Everyone is waiting.
Good evening everyone. Welcome to the third day of International Faculty Development Program on Creative Methods for Teaching Digital Natives in Higher Education, organized by the Department of English, St. Mary's College, Thrissur. Our first session today is on pedagogy to andragogy in higher education. We have Dr. Mary Jayanti. Dr. Mary Jayanti is the Vice Principal and Assistant Professor of English at Holy Cross Autonomous College, Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu. Dr. Mary Jayanti, a passionate teacher and a researcher, has 18 plus research articles in national and international journals. Dr. Jayanti is a qualified L&D professional and corporate trainer. She is not just an erudite, but also a deeply intuitive poet and writer with a pen name Jayanti Manoj. We are extremely honored to have you here, ma'am. I gladly invite Dr. Mary Jayanti to handle our first session titled Pedagogy to Andragogy in Higher Education. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this faculty development program. A special word of thanks to Professor Justin James for inviting me to the faculty development program, and a word of appreciation to you, sir, for always collaborating teachers across the globe to bring in a fruitful learning environment.
Thank you.
Yes. And a special note of appreciation to the management, to the departments who are engaged in organizing this FDP, to the secretary, to the principal of St. Mary's College, Thrissur. Although the pandemic has torn us apart in many ways, somehow through online, we are connected from various spaces, and we bring in so much of love, affection, care, and learning from across spaces, and hope this session also brings in a new insight to what we have to say. In saying so, let me just share my screen. Just let me know if my screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, do let me know if there are any technical glitches from my end. I hope this goes on very smoothly. So,
Sure, ma'am. All the best.
yeah, thank you so much. So welcome to the discussion on pedagogy to andragogy in higher education. And this session will primarily focus on, is there a need for this paradigm shift from pedagogy to andragogy in higher education? If so, what is the concept behind? And if that is convincing, how to practically bring it into my everyday classroom? So these are the aspects that I would like to focus on. And I would like to begin with a quote that's one of my favorite. A teacher affects eternity. He or she never knows where it stops or ends. And I'm sure many of us will be able to relate with this thought if we had just at least one teacher in our life who has touched us in the 3 H's, that is in our head, our heart, and our hand, by making us learn something by doing. So how to bring in a shift from pedagogy to andragogy in higher education? The objectives of the session are to identify the need for a paradigm shift from pedagogy to andragogy, to understand the need for OB, that's outcome-based education, and RBT, that's revised Bloom's taxonomy, and how to design a non-threatening creative classroom for a learner-centric experiential learning, and also to propose digital inspiration and digital detox methods. We begin with an ice-breaking thought. Is there a need for a paradigm shift? To reflect on it, we have to know that, we all know that quality education is one which facilitates thinking and enhances skill training, stimulates feeling, right? But this 170 plus year old education system with the examination system has been reduced only to a mark vending machine. And our methodologies, when it is only teacher centric, are limited to the transfer of knowledge and not into the enhancement of the learner or the student who is of the primary importance. So the focus of the presentation is to explain on the need for a paradigm shift from pedagogy to andragogy. Before I move on to the conceptual part, I would like to begin from quoting Tamil Nannul about the 8 kinds of learners that we have in a classroom. Tamil Nannul says that there is just not one kind of student in a classroom. There are 8 kinds of students. The first one is like soil. In Tamil, we say man, right? I'm sure even in Kerala, we can connect with that. So these kinds of students learn through constant attention, just like how soil requires attention by watering, by weeding, by using manure for growth. These kind of students need constant attention. The second kind of students are like a pot with a hole. They are full when the teacher is in class. Once the teacher leaves, everything, their energy, their learning, their motivation drains away. There is a kind of distraction they are into. The third kind of students are like a tea filter. And what does a tea filter do? A tea filter holds on to the remnants and let goes of the essence. And sometimes whenever we want to make the class interesting or to connect in a class, we use certain stories, analogies, right? And in order to arrive at a concept. So a student with a T-filter attitude will remember the story and let go of the essence. The next one is like a parrot. What does a parrot do? It learns by repetition. It learns through repetition. It learns through repetition. It cannot think beyond that. It learns only from what is told. It cannot repeat anything on its own. It cannot think. The next kind of students are like goats. And if we have seen goats, they munch on whatever is available on the outside, meaning on the surface. They don't delve into it. In Tamil, we say, "Aadu nuni pulla meyum," meaning to say, the learning is only at the surface level. It does not delve deeper. And when anybody is in the elementary kind of learning, they just learn the outline, and with just 2 or 3 points, they go in for an essay. So such kind of students are also there. Next, the kind of students that we have are like buffaloes. Buffaloes that are distracted, confused, lazy, without purpose. They go in here, they go in there, they move around. If there is a kind of a sloshy area, they go mess up with it, and they are great distractors. They personally are distracted, and they love to distract others too. It can happen. All these things can happen both in online and offline also. The next kind of students that we have are like the cow. The cow learns through deep reflection and rumination. So what happens? A cow takes in what it needs, it chews the cud, and then it takes in and digests and internalizes. So we have such motivated students also in the classroom. And the last kind of students are like the mythical swan, right? In Tamil, we can say it's Annapachi. Even in the regional languages in South India, they will be able to relate with it. This mythical swan is believed to have the ability to separate water and milk. So this kind of student is evaluative in the learning process. And it is also told that this kind of student, this kind of student can separate wisdom from momentary learning. So when we have a set of 8 different kinds or more of students in a classroom where they are so different in attitude, they are so different in motivation in their learning styles and learning skills, can one method or a flow from only the teacher to the student, can it really bring in a change? And it states for sure that there is a need for a paradigm shift. And this example from Tamil Nannul quotes very optimally that such kind of students, when we have learner-centric methodologies, we will be able to be more effective. And at this place, we have what is called as andragogy, right? And now, as of now, especially in higher education, this change has already started. Andragogy has replaced pedagogy. To just break down the whole terms into simple understanding, pedagogy literally means leading children. It is for children in the lower classes who do not have a prior experience and they need direction for learning. And the same cannot be done in higher education, wherein pedagogy is a term that is limited only to lower class learning. And andragogy was a term coined to refer to the art and science of teaching adults in higher education. And we have Malcolm Knowles, who define andragogy as an emerging technology for adult learning. And how is this children's learning different from adult learning? We have adults in the classroom who learn best when they are engaged with learning, when they're given something to do, when they're given something to experiment, right? And we also understand that the adult learning takes place based on the prior knowledge that they have. So Malcolm Knowles' 4 andragogical assumptions are that adults move from dependency, as in pedagogy, to self-directedness. So we need to design more and more classroom engaging activities where the concept is arrived not just through lecture method, but through engaged experiential learning. And they also draw upon their reservoir of experience for learning. They have a prior knowledge and they have ways of learning it that also is all accommodated here, and are ready to learn when they assume new roles. When they're participative learners, they learn more. For example, when we engage students in role plays and act outs, the learning is much more higher, and they want to solve problems and apply new knowledge immediately. So these 4 primary assumptions are that makes learning in an andragogy based environment more self-directed. Now the question, why is this shift from pedagogy to andragogy typically needed right now? Because we deal with the Y or the millennial generation who are hyper-connected and hyper-social. Okay, for them, something that, and we, the whole conference is about, or the development, FDP is about the digital natives. And they are so hyper-connected and hyper-social. When we try to engage them in one particular activity, they find various ways to do things, and who are born into a zero-degree delay and instant world. They cannot wait. Okay, they understand noodles and instant coffee much more to filter coffee and full-time meals. They prefer T20 and they love fast foods, and they get into metro raids, and they do not really engage themselves with a 50-over match or a full-time kabaddi match or a full meal or novels. So this being the mindset, how does a teacher make a 50-minute here it's an English class effective, or any class that can be effective? Directly, I give you an input, meaning to say, it's best to choose a 10+2 formula. 10 minutes of solid input. It could be in any method that you derive, and a 2 minutes of productive break. So in a 50-minute, you have at least 3 or 4 times 2-minute productive break, which can be for a mind boggle toggle, or it could be an FAQ, right? It could be a formative assessment question, or it could be an engaged way of looking at things, the concept that you have taught. So in doing so, the whole 50-minute is broken into 3 or 4 segments, wherein conceptually in one set of 10 minutes, you're able to drive in the point, and then you have a 2 minutes productive break, and then you move in. And initially, this kind of a paradigm shift, when we speak about paradigm, a paradigm is a set pattern in which we always conduct or do things, and it is more habitual. For example, a lecture can go on for a minimum of 1 hour. But what happens on the other side, our millennial generation are there who cannot, an average brain is so much prone into a distractive syndrome. And the reports say that the mind cannot focus for more than 8 seconds. In doing so, how am I going to engage a 50-minute lecture or a one hour or a 1.5 hour session? So a 10+2 formula is an answer to it. We can, in the whole process of the session, you can also see models of how you can do it. What are the various ways of doing it also? Now that we've started our lecture for 10 minutes, I think we'll have a 2 minutes break, wherein I want you to just watch this. Just let me know if you are able to see this video.
I am such a strong believer of the conservation of mechanical energy that I am willing to put my life on the line. If I release that bob from a certain height, then that bob can never come back to a point where the height is any larger. If I release it from this height and it swings, then when it reaches here, it could not be higher. There is a conversion from gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy back to gravitational potential energy, and it will come to a stop here. And when it swings back, it should not be able to reach any higher, provided that I do not give this object an initial speed when I stand here. I trust the conservation of mechanical energy for 100%. I may not trust myself. I'm going to release this object, and I hope I will be able to do it at 0 speed, so that when it comes back, it may touch my chin, but it may not crush my chin. I want you to be extremely quiet, because this is no joke. If I don't succeed in giving it 0 speed, then this will be my last lecture. I will close my eyes. I don't want to see this. So please be very quiet. I almost didn't sleep all night. 3, 2, 1, 0. Physics works, and I'm still alive. See you Wednesday.
So, can I have your response to this video? This was Walter Lewis, the physics professor from MIT, the last lecture, and this is one of his classes where he uses a mechanism to explain the kinetic energy, Newton's law of universal gravitation, and conservation of mechanical energy. And I'm sure the students who were there will learn it for a lifetime, and nowhere was the lecture monotonous. And of course, we can have a question where is it possible to bring in such a kind of a classroom? I'm sure the expert teacher really finds ways to do it. So what kind of experience is it that I'm going to bring to my class today? That is a primary question that we can always deal with. Yeah, I just noted 2 of your responses. Thank you for that. Focusing on outcome-based education, which is OBE. Outcome-based education is an educational model in which you have the curriculum, the pedagogy, and the assessment are all focused on student learning. And you have NBA says for institutional accreditation, if there is no OBE, then there is no accreditation, because outcome-based education primarily focuses on one question. From my class, what does the student learn to do? It is not what I teach or what I have to say or what I intend to transfer. It is what he or she has learned in my classroom. And for this, you have what is called as an OBE alignment, where the curriculum, which is the mandated knowledge and practice, the syllabus, and the goals and objectives, the whole of it should find its learning in a learner-centric methodology in the pedagogy that I use. Here it is andragogy, right? The methodology that I use, the strategies and the tools to meet the curriculum requirements, and which has to align with my assessment. Simply saying what is there in the syllabus has to be dealt in my class with the learner-centric experience, and the same has to be assessed. And based on the assessment, my curriculum has to really improve. This OBE alignment is perfect when the pedagogy moves on with andragogical approaches where it is more learner-centric. And for this, one has to have an idea about Bloom's taxonomy. Many of us are familiar with it. Many of the professors would be applying to it. This begins with in the year 1956, where we have Benjamin Bloom, the American educational psychologist, who speaks about what we call as CAP. That is, the learning domains are elaborated through CAP. CAP is the cognitive domain in the head. A is for the affective domain, where learning affects the attitudes and skills. And P is they learn by doing, the psychomotor domain, where they are involved in manual or physical skills based on what kind of concept that we teach. So when our teaching in the classroom is primarily focused on CAP, it could be in combination of 2 or it could be in a sequence of 3 in any order, according to the concept, is learning complete, because Bloom's taxonomy classifies the system for learning. And it's a classification system for defining and distinguishing different levels of human cognition. So I have a question. Are you ready to become a total teacher? This is a question. You can post it in the chat box. A total teacher, yes. I'm sure all of you are one already. We are just trying to enhance our learning skills. Transforming outcome through active learning. And this is very much necessary for the Y or the millennial generation, because research or studies show that the TRP for a 50 over match has so much decreased, right? And always we need to know what happens to a 50-minute or a 60-minute classroom. So to be a total teacher, there are 2 questions that one has to have before going into the classroom. So what is the experience I'll bring to my classroom today to make learning effective? Like how we had the demonstration of the last lecture, even if it's not going to be so elaborate, even through small, simple methods, which we will be discussing, what is the experience I'm going to bring along with the concept that I'm going to teach today? And the second question is, what are the domains of learning that I will touch upon to allow learning today? Am I going to do it from the cognitive level? Is it that I'm going to start through the affective domain and then move to the cognitive domain? Or is it that I'm going to start through the psychomotor domain, move to the affective or the cognitive? It is not linear, but learning is complete when the 3 of it, the 3 domains are touched upon. And so the different kinds of students that we have will have one of the kind of the domain that we have here as their more comfortable learning domain. So that can usually influence the learner to be much more engaged in the learning process. To understand pedagogy versus andragogy, we teach children how to think and not what to think. And the picture that's given here is pedagogy is the sage on the stage, where the teacher is primarily important and what she says, what she does is most important in the learning process. Whereas the guide on the side is more unconventional, and where the teacher is a guide by the side. And what happens is she is there to facilitate learning. And it is not that she is going to give directions, but allows self-direction. And here also, if you see, the sage on the stage is in the center, whereas in the guide on the side, you have unconventional ways of collaborative learning, wherein the teacher is available, and much of the work for the guide on the side is outside the classroom, where she prepares materials, where he or she prepares materials and methodologies. And here it is more of engaging the learners in the participative learning environment. We have John Hattie, a professor and researcher in education from Australia, who has evidence-based research on classroom findings. He's done almost 1,400 researches, which speaks about how effective can a classroom be. This is specifically on all the aspects of learning, where the environment, the teacher, the methodology, the learner's attitude, the learner's background, everything is taken into consideration. And this shows evidence-based research on how the guide by the side is more effective than the sage on the stage. And Professor John Hattie's researches are based on teaching, learning, and education. And you have performance indicators, student achievements, and teaching learning models. Very quickly, I'm sure you had some prior reading material and prior check-in videos. I hope you had some time to look into it, because we will not be able to play the whole thing. And this material was shared. Can I have a yes or no from the participants, just to know whether you received the materials for you to check on?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Good if you had checked in. Otherwise, no problem. Do take time just to understand how the material that was given offline would blend in understanding with what we need to do. So this is the 250 plus influence on student achievement. And John Hattie gives us the visible learning, which is a research synthesis finding from 1,400 experiments that he has made, and a lot of meta-analysis, more than 80,000 studies that has been involved, and almost 300 million students have been taken into this research work, into finding out what works best in education. So I would want you to go through this in leisure to find out the indicators. For example, you have learning strategies, and then he has the meta-analysis of what works and what does not work. And he has a key for rating. Those that are in blue are of high potential. For example, learning strategies, you have deliberate practice and effort from the student side, which has high potential of learning influence. And then you have the ones in light blue have a potential, the kind of effect that can have on learning strategies would be note-taking, outlining, and transforming. So he indicates what is the kind of effect it has. So when you have to really prepare for your class also, when you take time to go through it, you will be able to find out what works for my classroom and what doesn't work for my classroom. And then the ones that are in green is to say that it is to have some positive effect on the student achievement. For example, if we are to focus on student focused interventions, individualized instruction, matching style of learning, student centered teaching, all these things have a positive influence, right? And that which is given in yellow is likely to have a small positive impact on student achievement. For example, classroom influences like providing a background music now and then, and a little more of mentoring has a small kind of positive impact on student. So this gives you a variety and list of ways to enhance your classroom experience into an andragogical approach. And of course, we need to focus on the red alerts, which break a lot of myth and certain opinions also, right? If there is a red, that is a strong don't do in class for us, a reminder for us. We might know, but with habit or the pattern that we have, we might tend to do, which is likely to have a negative impact on the student achievement. For example, in a classroom influence, if the student feels disliked, I'm sure any amount of teaching will not really help. And even in a classroom, if there is retention that is holding back a student for not doing something, will never correct a student. And if you're for physical influences, if the child has ADHD, deafness, or even a lack of sleep, learning does not really take place. And for motivational approach and orientation, if there's going to be boredom, depression, performance goals, right? That's a big red here. And the surface motivation and approach, they don't really help. So this shows us very clearly what can work and what doesn't really work. So this can be a ready reckoner with the visible learning scale with the dark blue, which very clearly states there is going to be a high influence on student achievement, and a light blue, which has a high impact, light green, which says good, and yellow, which says likely, and the red will always be a negative impact. So having this scale, and John Hattie has done an experiment called the D size, which very clearly shows if we continue to be just a sage on the stage. When I say just a sage on the stage, I do not say we have to do away with the lecture method completely. There are times that we need to really bring in the lecture method, but only being a sage on stage is typically a no-no with a red and a yellow. Okay, and a guide on this side has a high impact with evidence-based teaching, speaking facts with teacher clarity, and a strong relationship, the two teacher-students professional relationship, and the teacher's personal professional development has a very high impact. And it is also very important that one has to plan the 3H. So whatever is the concept, Am I going to lead it from the head, which is more cognitive and which influences the thinking part, right? Or is it going to be an attitude through which I start with a story or a video which touches the heart, which brings in the attention? Or am I going to give in something for them to experiment with hand? Science departments can do a lot, or even arts department can bring a can be innovative in bringing in the psychomotor skills. Yes. And I hope you had, for those of you who had the time to see the 3 videos. Yes. Can you just tell me which of the videos were you able to identify with the head, heart, and hand? There was, I've just brought in the clippings because for want of time, I'm just reminding you on the video. There was a video on making of a bangle, thread bangle. I hope you had the time. Yeah, the hand thread bangle. So what kind of impact did it have? Does it touch the head, or is it the heart, or is it the hand? It focuses on learning through psychomotor hand. Yes, Bhargavi. Learning through doing. Okay, that's an example of learning through doing. And you had a video with this, the black hole. And after seeing the video, what was the impact? Did it resonate with your head or heart or the doing skills?
Actually, both head and heart.
Both your head and heart, and primarily it's the heart. You feel so sorry for the greedy employee there. And for those of you who had not much of a time, do go back. You will be able to connect to it, right? So this is an example of learning by doing. When you get, that is the effect. I'm not telling you have to show just only such videos. It is just to show the effect on how these 3 domains, we respond to these 3 domains in a different way. And this one where you have the greedy employee going through the black hole, it really touches the heart. The first one is for the hand and the second one is for the heart. And then you had this big vacuum, the world's biggest vacuum room, where you had a person witnessing both the iron ball and the feather falling at the same time. And sure, it conceptually appeals to the cognitive domain, the head. So learning something, yes, learning something could always happen from these 3 domains. And which of the domain am I going to start with? Sometimes you can club all the 3. It can be in a linear fashion. It can be assorted. It depends on the type of concept that you are working on. But then relatively, the domains of learning, the CAP, they have an interlinked association, and they do really affect in the teaching learning process, especially through the revised Bloom's taxonomy. Now, can you just read what is there on the screen? If one of you can do it loud, or the others can do it silently.
A bird in the hand.
Yeah.
A bird in the hand.
Yeah. So that was just for a 10+2 thing to just bring us back to show that we've ended with one concept and the other one. Sometimes we oversee something because the way it is written, and this is just for a mind boggle toggle, and it has no relative working to what we have been saying, just to bring us back together and move on to the next concept, where we speak in detail about what is Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy. I would just make a mention of it. But I think many of you would be trained in Bloom's taxonomy or the revised Bloom's taxonomy, and so you'll be able to associate. For those, it is the first time. You just go through the concepts. I may not be able to give you in detail, and in case you need to have a separate training on it, you have a lot of options of online training on RBT as such. So I receive a lot of yes from the participants. So we will quickly go through what the Bloom's taxonomy is about. The taxonomy of cognitive objectives, and as discussed earlier, it was started with the 1950s, which was developed by Benjamin Bloom, and it's a means of expressing qualitatively different kinds of thinking, and it's been adapted for classroom use as a planning tool, and it continues to be one of the most universally applied models because it provides a way to organize the thinking skills into the 6 levels from the most basic to the most complex level of thinking. So in my classroom, each of us will have to ask, does the 6th level of thinking happen, or is it just limited to the lower order of thinking? So this is Bloom's taxonomy. Next, I will take you to the revised Bloom's taxonomy. For our understanding, we have the 6 levels, wherein the first 2 levels are known as LOT, lower order thinking. And way up from application to evaluation, right? It is HOT, that is higher order thinking. And many a time, classrooms could end with just the lower order thinking. Explain it with an example of teaching a poem, right? A poem or a concept or a passage or any definition. So, or I can take the example of teaching feminism in a classroom. So when I want my students to just remember the dates, the major feminist writers or major feminist activists, or ask them to just describe or define what feminism is, I talk to them, or I allow learning at the knowledge level. I tell them something and they're able to repeat it. This is to recall facts, names, and history. And this level is also necessary to begin with. But if it just stops with this, then we will have only parrots in our class, right? And next is comprehension. Next is I would want my students to distinguish between the various feminist movements and recognize the major points that that has been brought in by different feminist activists, and also classify or report or select and what is their understanding of the concept. Then I move them on to the comprehension level. Then the application part is allowing them to read through analysis that is done applying a feminist perspective, the major points in feminism, right? And how it is applied to analyze the next level, to analyze and investigate and categorize the major themes or symbols or the language part based on the rules or the tenets of feminism. Next is in BT, we have synthesis. This is a place where you allow them to write a poem based on feminist perspectives, or write a paragraph on feminist perspective, where essentially the student creates something. And the last one in BT is evaluation, where they can judge, critique, defend, or evaluate not only the prescribed poem, not only the feminist perspective that is taught, even when there is another new material, they will be able to analyze it. And this 6 thinking levels of thinking undergoes a change from 1956 to 2001, where primarily the earlier one, the BT, the Bloom's taxonomy, the first one had all the 6 levels in the noun form. Okay, that was a kind of an end product. And in 2001, we have what is known as the RBT, that's the revised Bloom's taxonomy, where we move to the verb form, and there is an interchange where creation becomes the highest point of achievement and evaluation precedes it. This change is also done here. I've given, in revised Bloom's taxonomy, apart from the cognitive process dimension where you have the 6 thinking levels, we also have the knowledge dimension where we take care of the factual knowledge, the conceptual knowledge, the procedure knowledge, and the metacognitive knowledge, which I would be explaining in a short while. Just to make it more simple, let me explain this cognitive process dimension. If I am to teach, one has to teach about an apple and an orange. So is this an apple or an orange, this picture? Can somebody tell me, is this an apple or an orange? Is it very confusing? Okay, you have apple orange. Parkavi, you are excellent. Okay, yeah, we will find out this apple or orange. How did it happen? Suppose orange inside apple. Okay, Ramya, thank you for that. And if you check here, I want to teach, if we need to teach about an apple and orange, how are we going to go here with this 6 cognitive level processes? To remember them, I will give them the name. One can give the name and ask them to identify an apple and orange. So recalling names, definitions, formula, something that you have taught and like a parrot that they're able to remember. And here the dates, definitions, all these things will be important. Second one is based on the understanding, we can ask them to draw or describe an apple and orange. So if they have understood what an apple and orange is, then they will be able, based on their comprehension, they will be able to write or draw or describe it. And next is how to take them to application. Ask them to do something that somebody has already done, but it is new for them. For example, we ask, what do you do with it? Now that you've taught them a concept, you've taught them a concept on feminism, you've taught them a concept on GPS, you've taught them on basic human rights. What do you do with it? Let them go and research ways on how this has been applied and connected to real life learnings or even academic learning. Here in our example, the apple and orange, they would say you can make juice, you can make mocktail, and I'm sure women will say we can make face pack. I also understand men also use a face pack these days. And then they go to analyze in relation to something. Analysis is always done in relation to something. What are the good and bad effects of eating an apple and orange? So you compare and contrast apple and orange in relation to something, for example, in relation to a fructose content, right? And then we take them to the next level where evaluation is done to differentiate in terms. For example, compare an orange and apple and differentiate it in terms of the diabetic patients. Or for children, orange is the essence for the children and it's good for their citrus content. They come to a conclusion by evaluating and analyzing. And then this is a beautiful stage where you allow them to create. What can you do? The difference between the application stage and creation is they revisit what is already done by others. And for creation stage is they do or try something which has not been done till now. So if our learning can be taken to this level of learning and thinking and understanding, I'm sure we will have amazing learning environment. So now, after that concept, this is for us to just think. This is a national leaders tree. Many of you could have seen this, just to break the ice. How many of you can find out the different leaders and who are they? Can you see the faces here? Who are the leaders that you can see here? Okay, Nehru, Indira Gandhi, then Gandhiji, okay. Tagore, okay. Then, yeah, you have Gandhiji here, Tilak, Bhagat Singh, okay. Yeah, Bhagat Singh is here. Indira Gandhi, yeah, she's here, okay. So this is, okay. You have Nehru here, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for connecting, yeah. Here we move on to knowledge dimension, which is part of RPT, where we have factual knowledge, where facts that cannot be changed. So we teach them terminology, specific details and elements. This is necessary, but this alone cannot be the limitation, because we need to move on to conceptual knowledge, where they learn to classify, categorize, go about the principles and the generalization and knowledge of theories and models and structures. And of course, for science departments, you have the procedural knowledge, where you have sequence of learning, the step-by-step thing in doing an experiment, and which is necessary for an appropriate procedure. And metacognitive knowledge is what is known as the expert teacher's domain, is thinking more than beyond or the normal and the ordinary, where you had the example of Walter Lenin's The Last Lecture, where he created his own strategy of teaching. So in this domain, what happens is learning is more experiential, and the teacher is able to create a metacognitive knowledge which cannot be tested, but it is a way of strategy that allows the learner to have self-directed learning. So to summarize, with this, we come to the first part of the lecture. I think we have another 45 minutes where I take you to the practical side. Till now, I focused on the conceptual part, how we can move from a pedagogical to an andragogical environment of learning, facilitating learning. So to summarize, there are two things that we need to focus when we prepare for a classroom. That is RBT plus CAP, which brings in andragogical environment, wherein we focus on how to make the students remember to recognize. Yes, blended learning. Yes, sir. That would be primarily when we use online and offline mode. We would have a discussion of it also. Yeah. So how do I focus the cognitive level to recall and recognize facts, and then to understand from their comprehension of the facts, what is their understanding, and then apply it to the facts and rules and concepts. And these three things primarily is where the knowledge transfer, the educational transfer occurs in a traditional education. And sometimes it's limited to that. When we move to an andragogical environment, we move to what is called as augmented reality, where the knowledge transfer escalates to analyzing and evaluating, where the student is able to break down information into component parts and then evaluate the value of information or ideas. And if we are successful in creating the space for the learner to create by combining parts to make a whole, which is absolutely new, I'm sure the learners are self-directed, where they have a lot of creativity and innovation. And in preparing for a class, one has to primarily focus on the 3 H's, that is the head, heart, and hand. Which of this am I going to take to the classroom? So with that, we end the conceptual part of the focus of the presentation. I move on to the practical part. I would like to ask for, maybe we can spend 2 minutes on any questions or suggestions or any add-ons that you would like to say, or is it that I can continue and we can take the questions at the end? How do you prefer?
The second way, ma'am.
Okay, can we just continue? So then after the whole presentation, we can have the discussion. So this is a beautiful picture that I really love. My classroom is like this baby, right? Although I have to take care of my baby, I should always give the child its way of learning and growing. I cannot hold on to the baby all the time. I need to facilitate whatever is necessary, but I cannot just limit it to what I want to do. So now let's become very practical, how to go about making an andragogical environment important. Again, John Hattie's D-size experiment says, in order to motivate students, okay, neither punishment or only rewards doesn't motivate students as much as the combination of both. It can be a little complex, but it is interesting, right? Punishments and rewards in combination, where a teacher, for example, in a classroom, we all say you must have the material that you have to study. And most of the time, it could be if the student did not bring the material, it could be a punishment that you should be outside, or it could be a reward that they have brought in. But a punishment or a reward is not just to penalize somebody, but to reinforce. Reinforcements are better done when there is a combination. For example, a combination of punishment and reward would be, okay, there has been a student who does not bring the text to the class. So the student will be the one who will read the text in the class by using the teacher's text. So it is neither a punishment nor a reward, but an engaging practice of reinforcement. I'm sure the student will remember on the next day to bring in the text and would like to be connected in a class. So John Hattie says, in isolation, punishment and rewards are not as beneficial as when it is done in a combination of both. So now let me just take to the practical part of it. We have 4 basic principles of memory. Memory here is not just to by heart, but how the brain works. And this exercise is called as the primacy and recency effect. And this goes like this. I'm going to read out a set of words. And if you have a paper and pen, it's good for you to note it down. Or if you're techno savvy, you can open a window and just type it out. But when I read it, kindly listen. I will read the list twice and I will give you time to write, to recall and write. Okay. And this exercise is much beneficial when you don't write when I read out the list. When I read out the list, you will listen, right? And when I ask you to write, you recall and write. When it is done this way, we will be able to connect with the principles and the learning out of the exercise. Am I clear in my set of guidelines? Am I clear in what I've told? I'm going to read a set of words. I will do the list twice. And then when I read, I would want you to listen. And we might feel that we need to note it out somewhere. Let's avoid that. But I will give you time to write it down. And at that point of time, we will be able to process the whole thing. So are we all, yeah, thank you so much. Are we all set for listening? I will read the list twice. It's a list of words. So listen, I will read it twice. The words are as follows: dream, sleep, night, mattress, snooze, sheet, nod, tired, night, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snore, pillow. So that is the list of words. I will do the list again once more. Listen. Dream, sleep, night, mattress, snooze, sheet, nod, tired, night, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snore, pillow. So now you can take, say, 15 to 20 seconds to just recall what you heard. You can write it down and just tell me once you are ready. 20 seconds for you. For those who have a paper, you can write. Else, you can even write the list and post it to the chat box. Okay. I assume that you were able to write. This works best when we are in a physical space, but I'm sure learning happens in every space. So just revisit the list and let me know if you have written dream and pillow. Okay, Muthukumari has posted hers. Yeah. Just check if you have written dream and pillow. Yes. I can see that dream is there, pillow is there. Yeah. Why did I ask for these two words particularly? Because dream was the first word and pillow was the last word that I read out. And this is called as the primacy and recency effect because we always retain what we hear first and last. We heard first dream and the last one was pillow. So we have this primacy and recency effect. So this shows how we begin a class and how we end a class has utmost effect in the retention-based learning environment. So how you begin a class and how you conclude a class always have, it has almost 98 to 99% impact. Next is, how many of you wrote the word night? You can just write yes or raise your hands. I'll just get it. If you had written the word night, yes, yes. For sure, many of you would have written night because night was a repeated word. We understand that we learn better when there is a repetition. When we say repetition, it is not repeating endlessly, but with purposeful repetition. You can repeat the primary concepts in your classroom, that of which you want your students to delve further. So that is one clue that we have. Next thing is, how many of you wrote artichoke? Okay, 2 of you have raised your hands. A few of you are, okay, yes, okay, no, fine. Fine. What happens is, artichoke is something that is not combined with the list that I have given, but that is something that is new. Sometimes new, different, and unexpected ones can grab attention, right? And it will always help the student to explore, right? So artichoke is a word, it's actually a plant, right? And this is not related to the list that we have given here. And how many of you wrote bed? Steffi has raised the hand. Anybody else? Okay. The good news and the bad news is bed was not in the list. And many a time, okay, you have very prudent people here who have not written. In a larger group, when we are able to do it face to face, many of them would write bed because we learn through association. In andragogy, students learn from us what is told and what they perceive. Okay. And the first time I did the exercise, I wrote bed and I was damn sure that bed was there. But then I learned concept because the mind processes things from a previous knowledge also. So these basic principles of retention-based learning gives us 3 important things in the classroom. So how you begin the class and the introduction to the subject topic has to be surprising, an unexpected one. And students also learn through repetition and association, and how you summarize and wind up the class is essential. So in a class where we move to an andragogical method, there are 3 phases. One is evocation. Evocation is how you introduce. Knowledge sharing is the primary input session. And formative is the feedback where you try to find out whether the student has learned what she has to learn. And for the evocation stage, I would call that is the punch. That is the way you begin. The way you begin your class always brings in the attention, right? Attention and the focus, because Ours cannot be always the first class. First class, it's fine. If it's going to be the last hour, I'm sure you have to follow the coffee bean seed method. Coffee bean seed is something when we go to buy perfumes and scents. I'm sure you would have seen people having coffee beans. When you smell a perfume, they ask you to smell the coffee bean because it clears the nose so that you can sense the next smell. Okay, you can differentiate with the next smell. Likewise, this evocation is the coffee bean method where you just bring them to your class, because for a child, for us, it could be the first hour or it could be the second hour, but for the child, it could have been the 5th or the nth hour. Right? So evocation always. So how would you like to introduce a concept? These are some of the ways, but they are not limited to only this. You can begin with a role play, a demonstration, or an analogy. You can connect to the history of the topic, or begin with a song. I know of many teachers who begin it with a song, right? Okay, or a story mode. For example, we need to teach about Newton's law. We can begin with once upon a time, we had a boy named Newton, and he was you tell the whole story, a whole fact through a story, and once upon a time always has a great effect. And you start with an application question. Suppose you're teaching about GPS. You can ask, where is GPS used? Or you can bring in a case study chat. You can begin with colors. Yes, Steffi, would really appreciate that. Start with a newspaper cutting or a Google Doodle or an InShot, the 2-minute news app, or a related picture reading videos and images. But only thing is, evocation is the only place where you can bring in the experience of learning. I'm just a little, just skipping that, right? Next, we move to phase 2, that is knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is the input session, the input where you're going to share the concept. There are so many ways of doing. I'm just going to introduce one method, which I will give you an introduction. And furthermore, if you can just go on for online resources, there are ways of conducting it. That is also an available resource. So this is called the jigsaw method. Jigsaw method is primarily you divide the class into groups of 5. For example, you have a concept to teach, divide the whole concept into 5 chunks, okay, 5 divisions. And each of the concept that you have can be on a sheet of paper. So you'll primarily have 5 different sheets of paper, and it could be for every person in the class. So you have what is known as a group. So the first person in the group can be given sheet 1, sheet 2, then sheet 3, sheet 4, and sheet 5. And this could be done for the rest of the groups. Once the sheets are distributed, all number ones will, and this first group that they are in is called the home group. And then you create the expert group. Expert group is all the ones are called together to meet. All the 2s are called together to meet. 3s, then 4s and 5s. So in the expert group, each one has one topic to deal with. They discuss and come to a consensus. Once the expert group is done, they come back to the home group. Now the home group is now empowered with all the 5 topics, and then they have a sharing and the whole class is covered. Here the teacher is a facilitator, and here the students really learn so much because they are engaged. And this requires a lot of homework for the teacher. And when you can, maybe not all the classes need to be that way, but if you can really bring in a few classes in that way, it becomes a more interactive method. And inside the classroom, while you're doing the input session, you can do horizontal reading. Of course, you can do a picturesque PowerPoint, audio, pre-reading, predicting technique, introductory presentation, make it into a big quiz, puzzle, story time. If you have a movie version of a concept, you could always do it. And always bank on the seminars and assignments, and give the seminars and assignments in such a way where you create the creator in the student and you can channelize it to the public space. And the third stage is the formative assessment. Formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment is the small questions, like how we had an interaction where you posted in questions, just to keep in line that you are on the same page. And summative assessment could be the quiz, the assignment, the internal test, and the end semester. The way to understand formative and summative assessment is, formative assessment is like when you are cooking, we try to taste if there is salt. That is formative assessment. And summative assessment is your cooking is tasted by the guests and they give a review. Okay, so there are ways to do it both in person and online. You pair and share. Then there is a discussion, presentation of summary, mind map, summarization. You have plickers. For want of time, I'm just giving you a list. All these things are available. Then you have Flabero, you have Kahoot and Slido.com. Let me see. I would like to take you through Slido.com if I'm able to wind up in the given specified time. Otherwise, I would just continue. Maybe towards the end, I will take you to the Slido.com. So, when we are able to focus in an andragogical classroom, when we are able to focus on evocation and deliver the subject matter with the RPT mapping and have the necessary tools of assessment, giving space for the discussion by students, and for the conclusion part, we either have a drawing of the mind map to evolve the concept or a presentation of summary by the student, we are moving to what is known as a self-directed learning for the students. So just to revisit the objectives, we began with the need for a paradigm shift from pedagogy to andragogy. We had an outline of outcome-based education and the revised Bloom's taxonomy, and also found practical, creative, non-threatening ways to create a learner-centric experiential learning. And the last segment, I would just take some 6 to 7 minutes to propose digital inspiration and digital detox methods. Looks like big words, but very simple things, which if you can add it to your class, I'm sure it is all the more interesting, especially during the pandemic, doing it online. So what is the role of a teacher in the e-classroom? And it is important to also communicate the online classroom etiquette that you require from your student, and blending offline learning material and experience, like how we did. I had shared certain videos for certain discussion here. Okay, that these are some of the ways. So the role of a teacher in the e-classroom is that of a digital mentor, where there is a lot of adaptability based on the student's availability and need. And of course, one thing, both for physical and the online classes, punctuality is there. And that is a code which I try to relate. Next is it has to be digitally engaging and practice-based virtual learning. So we blend between synchronous and asynchronous classroom. That is where, like one professor spoke about the blended learning, and you can communicate digital availability. What does that mean? Usually in a physical classroom, when we're out of the class, you will have a whole bunch of students coming out talking to you about their responses, and you have a mini classroom before you move to the next section. That is missing online. So one way to do that would be to check on your own schedule and the availability of the students, and you can have at least for once in 10 days or 15 days, you can say that for half an hour you will be available online for a 0-hour discussion. In that way, you can mentor your students, where you're not speaking about the subject, but connecting with your students. Model respect and digital citizenship, and balance synchronous and asynchronous classes. And an effective e-classroom environment, how to be a guide by the side in an e-classroom. Begin with an evocation, do a word cloud or a puzzle. Have think tanks who will teach along with you or add along with you. You can assign some work to them wherein they co-participate. And it could be like you can have one group for 1 week, next group. So every student is engaged in that and everybody has a role. Appoint a co-host, because network issues and classes together you may not be able to handle. Engage moderators and timekeeper. A student who is unable to be a part of a think tank can first begin to be a timekeeper. So in that way, you make sure that person is also counted in, and insist on formal login and IDs and assigned numbers, and use grid view screenshots. I always do this in class. Maybe for every 10 days of class, I use a grid view screenshot. We have a screenshot time, and then we share it in the WhatsApp group, just to stay on with the connect, right? And use the chat section as we do for a question answer session. Now, what is this digital detox? We're all online. Anything that we refer, we have to check online. And as a digital mentor, one primary work that a digital mentor has is to engage the students in offline activities, like focus on tech fast. Tech fast is they have to do an assignment which does not involve technology. They have to use their physical learning space to talk about the assignment that you've given, and insist on hands down digital time. You can agree in your class that you will have a half an hour hands down digital time, say 8 to 8:30. You will not be available online, just to put in a kind of a practice where you make sure you tell the students that apart from make them balance this change over to the digital thing, and just to make them also rest their eyes and mind, and engage in more offline content development for asynchronous classroom. Just simple thing, just ask them to watch the stars. That's one digital detox thing, which does not require a computer or an internet connection. And engage in 5 sense experience talk. Ask them what are the 5 things they saw beyond the computer in their environment, 5 things that they smell, 5 things they touched, 5 things they could listen to. So the 5 sense experience talk. Give them look out of your window and balcony assignments, right? What do you see out of your balcony? Something related to your concept. Have a food chat, speak about the immunity routine, play real. Ask them to bring something from their house to show and speak about it. So this is primarily to balance the real life and the digital life, and ask them to promote writing the journal. So I have a question. When was the last time you saw the stars? Ramya says yesterday. Oh, that's great. I saw it, I think, 2 days before. Yesterday night, day before yesterday, yeah. So this question can make us think to move out of this. On your son's birthday, before a month, Parker. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So this would be the kind of impact as a digital mentor, where we also make them aware of their environment. Very simple. I'm just giving you very little examples. I'm sure if we have more time, we can come up with more, right? So an effective teaching includes focusing on OBE, RPT, the CAP, and the ABCD. That's the audience, behavior, condition, and the degree of learning, which has psychological effects. And in andragogy, we assert that adults learn best when the learning content and processes have a meaningful relationship to the learner's past experience, and the experience is used as a learning resource. When you ask a question, from there you process, connect them to the concept, then it is a learning resource. And when they're engaged in related tasks where they are able to come up with answers, and they have as much autonomy and ability to interact, and the learning climate minimizes anxiety, and their learning styles are also taken into account, because insanity is doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting different results, and a paradigm shift would bring in different results. I began with a set of students, and these are the set of digital students that we can connect with. We are online, we have unplugged students, right? And it's not so interesting like unplugged music. One or two may not come online for want of internet connection and for want of motivation. We have unplugged students. We have plugged in but switch off students. They are plugged in, they are online, but their mic and minds are muted, right? We also have plugged in and switched on students who are connected and participative. And it takes an inspired teacher to make the students to plug in and switch on, because John Hattie speaks about 5 dimensions for an excellent or an expert teacher, where the teacher identifies how to introduce the subject and process the subject, creates an optimal classroom climate for learning where there is trust to make mistakes. It's cool to make mistakes and learn from it. They're not afraid of making mistakes, and they are skillful in monitoring and giving feedback and assessment. And they believe that each and every student in the class can reach the success criteria, and it is not just reserved for people who are, say, high achievers alone. Every child can scale up. And the expert or the excellent teacher, according to John Hattie, has influence on a wide range of outcomes, not just limited to the examination, but to the personality of the student as such. So a passionate teacher makes it difficult to unplug, and an expert teacher keeps learners plugged in and connected, because they have the 7 C's, which John Hattie says: cares, controls, clarifies, challenges, captivates, confers, and consolidates. Thank you. So in case you would like to just get in touch, these are my social media pages where you can get in touch. And if we have time for questions, or are we going in for questions, you can let me know about it. Thank you so much. Assignment ideas, yes. Assignment ideas can begin with journal writing, and you can ask them to, you have what is known as domain words for any subject. So you can ask them to prepare domain words related to your subject. So what are the words that are related to your subject? So you can ask them to make a list of it, and you can ask them, we always do the scrapbook, picture book. In those ways, you can always ask them to do something where it is not available online, but you can always ask them to create something on their own. I actually had one small exercise to do, but then I think it's more important that we finish it on time. Thank you so much for your responses. There is one Professor R. Chandra who has raised hand. Is it by mistake, or is there a question that you would like to ask? Well, Professor Jehosen, my focus here is not primarily on the concepts. It's just moving on to andragogy, where we focus on self-directed learning methodologies. And tutorology has its own concepts, which is a little different from what we had been speaking. My primary focus is we try to hang on to lecture method for quite some time, and how to just add in, like it's adding salt to whatever we keep doing. Salt increases the taste. So I would prefer andragogy that is more learner centric. Are there any other questions? Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, you wanted to make a point that self-directed learning, you wanted to make that point, I suppose. Okay. Okay, Ms. Chandra, thank you.
Is there any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay. So this is the time for a formal Vote of thanks. Thank you so much, Mary ma'am, because that was very, very informative and your points were very crystal clear. We all liked it and it was very impressive, motivational. We are getting a new idea about how to teach our kids. Some more effective. We are teaching you, but we can make it better tomorrow onwards. So your class was very, very, I don't know how to express my gratitude because we got such a wonderful session and you're a great teacher, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time and contribution. And I also thank Justin sir for inviting such a great erudite for us. Thank you, sir.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay. So you want to speak?
No, you complete, and I want to say a word of appreciation to Dr. Jayanti. After you complete, I'll do that.
Yes. So, Madam Ma'am, thank you so much. On behalf of everyone here, all the teachers present here, and from the Department of English, St. Mary's College, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, let us wind up this session, right, sir?
So, thank you very much, Dr. Jayanti.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you for
It's a good
inviting
one.
me. Thank
It's
you.
a good
sir.
one. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
And wishing you all the success for the continuing sessions. Thank you. I'm taking leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So let us wind up this session and join for the second session by 4:40. Thank you all teachers. Thank you so much for your attention and patience. Feedback form has been shared in the messages. Please go through it and submit the form. Thank you. Meet you all so soon.
of life, and which is actually inseparable. Literature is everywhere. So this is very undeniable interrelationship between life, literature, thought, and language. So the ever-changing paradigm of the global world have given literature not only an opportunity to revisit its own theories and practices, but chartered a course for new ones to emerge. The issues of society, the issues of culture, the issues of politics, the issues of genders, etc. They all need to be oriented and explored with the reference to the changing necessities of the society. Moreover, the rise of global world has made the medium of imitation a complex phenomenon, as the linguistic diversities have paved the way for a multilingualism that coexists with the ever increasing territory of a single global language, that is English. Now, which in turn has become has a lot of its own set adaptations as English is. So, and talking about Indian English literature, that refers to a body of works of writers who write in the English language and whose native or co-native language could be one of the language of any region from India or of India. So its early history began with the works of R.K. Narayan, Mulkraj Anand, Raja Rao, who contributed to Indian fiction in the 1930s, and it is also associated to the work of members of the Indian diaspora like V.S. Naipaul, Jhumpa Lahiri, then Bharti Mukherjee, then Agha Shahid Ali, Rohinton Mistry, Salman Rushdie. So, these all people have their Indian descent somewhere, and it is frequently referred to as Indo-Anglian literature. Indo-Anglian literature is a specific term. It's a sole term that has a sole context of writing that one should not get confused with Anglo-Indian. As a category, the production comes under the broader realm of post-colonial literature, the production from previously, but Indo-Anglian and Anglo-Indian are entirely different, so one should not get confused with that. And the major trend of the original creative writing in English in the Indian subcontinent, among others, after the trio of Raja Rao and then R.K. Narayan, then Mulkraj Anand in the middle of the 20th century. We have a multitude of writers, both men and women, from different walks of life on various themes. And then while economic and social development was also a priority for political leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, where the psychological, the sociological consequences, the development became a major preoccupation for writers like R.K. Narayan and Kamla Markande. They have also portrayed this in their books like The Painter of Science and The Handful of Rice, respectively. So they dealt with a less complicated and largely rural life in a leisurely fashion. And their overtly political and social themes required a slow space for introspection at every stage. So these are certain trends which are going on. Though Indian English writing has not a very old history, but this is also divided into two parts. One is pre-independence and one is post-independence. We are here today to talk about the trends which are taking place now in Indian English writings. But yes, the starting from the trios to Rabindranath Tagore, these are also not very old, which has also been they have always considered the major components what Indian people would dealt with always. So yes, the reformations have happened, the restorations have happened, and till now whatever is happening is again having a different kind of relevance in the society. So if we talk about trends specifically, I gave you a little brief and a little background of what Indian writing is all composite of. But the trend of Indian writing in English has been a hub of enchanting and put forth a wide variety of characterizations and a description regarding India and its life. So India was ruled by the Britishers more than 200 years, as I said already. And during that period, there was favor and support of patriotism, nationalism, mother tongue, and culture. So therefore, the writers try to depict a real image of India to the rest of the world with the help of English language and literature. So Indian English authors, what they did was they coined different terms related to this form of literature as Indo-Anglian literature, as Indo-English literature, and Indian writings in English. So the first 3 decades of 19th century marked the beginning of Indian writing in English, and that was considered as the period of incubation. Now, Indian writing in English offers us an opportunity to examine Indian consciousness and sensibility. And this is one of the areas in English literature, which is nowadays, a lot of research has been happening on this. And again, with India, we are blessed and we are thankful that with Indian English writing, we are witnessing a lot of remarkable changes. So this writing is emerging as voice of India through its portrayal of realistic picture of society. And it can be further, as I told you, that this is further divided into 2 periods, you may call the pre-independence period and the post-independence period. And further, more than that, you can divide it into as the classicist and the moderns. So the classical writings provide us plenty of literature on Indian life, which is presented, and there is a lot of romantic manner and talks and about India's magnificence and glory. But modern literature provides us the realistic picture of India. And Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, he became the first novelist, and Indian writings in English became popular in the later period of 19th century with the rise of nationalism, with the rise of Mahatma Gandhi, and Shri Aurobindo started and he contributed to Indian English writings. Then Sarojini Naidu contributed, Jawaharlal Nehru contributed, and besides writing in their vernacular language, they adopted English to express their sentiments. Then Rabindranath Tagore started writing in, he started writing in Bengali, and then he started writing in English, and then he, translated it into English. And like Mahatma Gandhi's Experiment of Truth, Jawaharlal Nehru's Discovery of India, and the Glimpse of Indian History, these all has been regarded as the jewels of Indian English writings. But in later 1930s, we have found fathers of Indian novels as R.K. Narayan, as I told you, that Mulk Raj Anand and Raja Rao. And this trio played a very vital role in the development of Indian novels. Mulk Raj Anand's Touchable, that actually showed us the glimpse of Dalit writing. Then Raja Rao's this Kanthapura, that actually portrayed the exploitation and struggle of Indians against the British rule. Then R.K. Narayan, he spoke about a region, he spoke about relationships. The guide won the prestigious Sahitya Akademi Award. So this is how the Indian writings came into. It has been showing such a big pace in the society. Now, if we talk about trends in Indian writing specifically, you can see on the screen that individual and society trends. Indian writings in English offers us an opportunity to discover Indian consciousness and sensibility. This writing is emerging as voice of India through its portrayal of realistic picture of society. So these are some trends which we can see that in Indian writing in English, like the first one is individual and society, you can see. So Indian writing in English provides us a wide description of individual character in a social setup, and the aspirations and struggle of individual versus society is beautifully depicted in some of the leading novels like Possession. And the leading character opposes social dogmas and superstitions on account of his rational understanding, similarly to Raja Rao's Kantapura, in that Murthy raised voice against the British rule. On the other hand, the poet like Nissim Ezekiel in his poetry Night of the Scorpion, he presented pain and agony of a mother. So the ironic twist in the poem comes in the end, when the mother was suffering in silence, and at the end she opens her eyes and her mouth and she says, "Thank God the scorpion picked me and spared my children." But at the same side, in the novel like Untouchable, Mulkraj Anand portrayed the pitiable condition of this poor boy Bakha, who showed that how he started the day when his father calls him by waking him up and telling him, "This get up, you son of the pig." So this is what individual and society, how it plays the role in Indian writing. It depends on the culture and how it is showing different culture in terms of social status, in terms of economic status, and also every writer has its own uniqueness. For every writer there is some different context in which he or she is writing. So that's the beauty of the showcasing of individual and society in Indian writings in English. Then women empowerment, the world of women is not only depicted by female writers but also male writers as well. But the women authors, they actually try to project the issues and challenges for which Indian women had been suffering from long period of time. So majority of Indian readers, they comprising both male and female, they read the novels of the Indian women authors with certain expectations. They used to look for some Indianness in their writings. Only the women novelists of India are capable of conveying the message of feminism in an Indian way. So the quest of identity has always been a prime theme for many Indian English writers. Like Uma Narayan, in somewhere she said that Indian feminism is clearly a response to issues specifically confronting many Indian women. So, and Manju Kapoor also stated very well. She described the position of women through her protagonist Astha. She said that in that novel, she said that a woman should be aware, she should have self-control, she should have strong will, she should have self-reliant and rational, she should have that inner strength overall. So a meaningful change is coming in Indian writings in English that can be brought only from the deeper psychic sense. And Manju Kapoor also has stressed on the issues of male dominances, family relations, and she says that there is a man within every woman and a woman in every man. And then why manhood is questioned and womanhood is fragile. So she has stated many, very strong points in their through the form of their works and all. So Shashi Deshpande, in one of her interviews, she expressed by her inner thinking about feminist movement as that if others see something feminist in my writing, I must say that it is not consciously done. It is because the world for women is like that, and I'm mirroring the world. So very beautifully depicted, short sentences, strong sentences, bring out the revolution and bring out so women were empowered. Not all the women were empowered, but certain women writers, through their empowerment, they bring out the revolution, they bring out the movement in the common people, in common women in the common society who never thinks about it. So, there are Toru Dutt, she has very beautifully depicted Indian women like Sita, and she had shown the women suffering and self-sacrificing roles. And Kamla Das, she raised her voice against women exploitation in both physically as well as mentally. And in Anita Desai's novel also you will find. So women empowerment is also one of the major trends in Indian writings in English, which has actually brought a change in the mindset of people and which will bring to. So the next trend you can see is urbanizations. The concept
Excuse me,
of
ma'am.
urban.
Hello,
Yes.
ma'am. May I
Yes.
interrupt? Your slides are not moving. Yeah, it is okay now. Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, it is not moving in that slideshow. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is visible now, and you haven't turned on the slideshow, ma'am.
I did that, no? I did that, but it is not happening. I can see the slideshow, but I don't know how are you unable to see that. So now I've done on that
No, it was not
device
moving.
thing.
Now
I
you are
think
on
you
the
might
third
have
slide.
moved, ma'am.
I'm on the third slide.
Third left.
Yes, yes.
Three.
It is visible now, ma'am. It is okay now.
So shall we go like this, or you want me to do that?
I think you should avoid slide presentation.
Okay. No, somebody suggested that in Google Meet it happens, and I've also heard about it previously that some
Yes,
in
it
some
doesn't
other
sometimes
session.
work on Google
Maybe
Meet.
I think that's the issue. So
Maybe that, ma'am.
if this is visible, then
No,
Shall I
ma'am.
try from here? Shall I try from here?
sir, as you wish. Okay. I'm okay
I
with
think
that.
that may work.
Yeah, just stop it. Stop your
Yes.
slide.
I did that. Third slide. Yeah, this one. Yes. So is this visible now?
Yes, it is
When
visible
earlier-
now. Can
Okay.
you, Professor James, can you just try back and forth? Yes, now it's coming. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Justin, sir. Okay. So I was talking about the urbanization in Indian writings in English. So the concept of urbanization is mostly found in the post-colonial literary works, and as the name suggests, urbanization that has brought various drawbacks along with it is so-called advantages. And in modern India, due to urbanization, joint families, slum area, are growing, moral values are degrading, crimes are rising. So the authors of Indian writing in English, they try to express a realistic picture of India. And A.K. Ramanujan in his poetry has showed a pitiable condition of Indian masses, whereas we have novelists like Khushwant Singh and Manohar Malgaonkar who realistically provides us the dark side of urbanization. In Amitav Ghosh leading works, you can see that he offers a picture of city and rural life. Vikas Swarup in his novel Q&A, he narrated a story of a slum boy who was able to win the famous quiz show and became millionaire. So very aptly, the author has stated also that if the poor conducts quiz, the rich would not be able to answer a single question. And the poor are always on the wrong side of the law and they only wait to be arrested. So when your whole existence is illegal, when the poor live on the brink of penury in an urban wasteland, where they jostle for every inch of space and have a queue even for a shit, the arrest has certain inevitability about it. So, this is how urbanization is showcased in Indian English writings, which is the fact, which is so the modern period is not more on the glory and the magnificence of the Indian beauty or Indian life or the Indian struggle, but the modern Indian English writing is all about the fact. They show us the fact that what it is, the picture of India. So then East and West encounter. it has been going on, and it is still, and I don't think so it is it's an ever-ending thing that East and West encounter would end in Indian English writing, because East is East and West is West. The twins shall never meet, but the expression of East-West encounter signifies conflict between tradition and morality, spiritual and materialism, tyranny and democracy, orthodox to modern scientific approach. East-West encounter is a recurrent theme in Indian English literature. Jhumpa Lahiri, R.K. Narayan, Bharti Mukherjee, Ruth Pravar Jhawala, Anita Desai, they all have tried to provide the glimpse of cultural clashes, the cultural alienation of Indian writers in English is most often referred as the swing towards West. East-West encounter is or some cross-cultural conflict. So this clash is bound to occur, and over deep-rooted walls have to encounter with the materialistic values of the West. Ruth Pravar Jhawala's Heat and Dust and Jhumpa Lahiri's Namesake, these are classical examples of the East-West encounter in Indian English literature. There are many, maybe I am just quoting these two, but there are many examples and many books you must have seen, A Passage to India by A.M. Foster, but he is an Anglo-Indian, so sorry. But there are a lot of, maybe I'm not able to recollect it now, but there are a lot of examples in or books in which you can see the East-West encounter never ends, and it would never end though. Then Indianness is the most remarkable point of Indian writings in English, and it is that the writer write in their expression and thoughts in a foreign language. So, but still their subject, plot, characters, ideas, and themes about India are always there. You know, you cannot take out India from an Indian. So in the novels of R.K. Narayan, we have a very charming picture of rural India, whereas we find fascination of Western towards our country's rich customs and traditions. And in the works of Salman Rushdie, Shashi Tharoor, and V.S. Naipaul, we have ideas of homeland, we have ideas of rootlessness and their personal feeling towards their country. So in Indian English writing, the problem of identity is linked with Indianness, and the Indian English writer suffers from two serious problems. Firstly, they want to search their identity always, and secondly, they want to establish themselves in the vast domain of world literature. So the modern Indian English writers are in the state of dilemma always in the presentations that of cultural identity, and they are always in conflicting position to locate them. And Indianness is the key feature of Indian writing in English. So the novelists, the Indian English novelists in 21st century are more interested in the presentation of life beyond life. So English writers, Indianness, though, the modern Indian writers, they want to maintain some creativity through their theme of life beyond life. And the modern Indian English novelists, they are much interested in the presentation of modern man's disillusionment. They want to focus on that and the disillusionment in the world of intellectual and spiritual void. So the modern man is surrounded by multiple problems, and it is too difficult for him to survive in such a condition. So a large number of modern Indian English novelists are concerned with the questions of alienation, rootlessness, boredom, disillusionment, identity, sorrow, and everything caused by the conflicts. So this is one of the major thing which is there, which has been prevalent and which will never go out of Indian English writings though. But though the trends are changing, as I told you, the how the old writers used to write and how these new writers are changing their trends. So and then liberty. The theme of liberty is prominently figured in Rabindranath Tagore's work. He exhorted the Indians to awaken from the darkness of slavery, of bondage, like where the mind is without fear, and head is held high. It clearly reflects sense of self-respect. It clearly reflects sense of freedom. And as you can also see in the novel Kanthapura, we found the theme of liberty through the character of Murthy, who symbolized Gandhian concept of freedom. In the works of Mulkuraj Anand, it is very clearly visible in the novels like Coolie, that the boy Mano, he represented the downtrodden class. And even in the White Tiger by Arvind Adiga, the driver Ashok, he wants to get rid of from his class and try to challenge the aristocratic society. So Mahashweta, and also Mahashweta Devi in her works depicted the condition of poor people from the colonial times to the post-modern age. And then her literary creation had vivid agenda of achieving certain activists and all. So she was a responsible writer, and she still has a and she knows how to take the stand in defense of the exploited and all. So then again, family relationships, voice of marginalized, the relationship between man and women, that is an outcome of differences between the sexes of man and women. The relationship between husband wife, the relationship between son mother, the relationship between father daughter, sister brother, they are commonly regarded by the code of conduct to as a family institution. So the Indian English novelists, not only male authors but also female authors, depicted this theme in their works as the prominent themes, and then they revolve their story around it. So in the past, or you may call, not, as I told you that Indian English writing is not too old, but still the modern writers, they are showing a lot of facets of marriages and the relationships which are going fake, the relationships which doesn't have any existence, but they were just surviving with some bond. So this gives the revolution, this gives the idea to for freedom. This is also an idea of freedom for them. So they express their ideas and they show the different perspectives. Then myth or mythology, it appears in Indian English literature, that again and again in novels of, I would say, talk about the trio, Raja Rao, Arkinar and Arundhati Roy, they showed the theme of mythology at the backdrop of their novels. And in the Buddhist literature also, they found the concept of mythology. In Rudyard Kipling's Kim, the myth serves as the link between the concept of philosopher and the experiences of the commoner. In the works of Gita Hariharan, we have abundant mythical stories. We have myth and folklore in Girish Karnad's drama in abundance, as in The Fire and the Rain and the Nagamandala. So in India, the literary artists adopted their mythological stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vedic literature and Quran, love, and all these things, and then they adapted it and they showed it from a logical point of view. Devdutt Patnaik, how can we forget him? He has shown a completely different view of mythology into logic and all sciences behind it, isn't it? So this is again one of the major trend, and how homosexuality and how the treatment of sex was there in these mythologies, and how it has been relatable. Nobody was talking about it earlier, but now these are the trends. This is happening. Then love, sex and marriage is boldly highlighted in the works of Indian writings in English now. because issues related to gay, lesbian marriages and live-in relationships are also boldly depicted by Indian authors. Mahesh Dattani and Manju Kapoor, they have portrayed well such relations through their unforgettable characters. So the mindset of people have changed. Before this, also these kind of books were tried, like Isma Chuktai's The Quilt. It was a big controversy because the society then and society now has changed with this urbanization. People are adapting it, so trends are changing. No lesbianism, the live-in relationship, same-sex marriage, that is no more a taboo now. So this is the broad view that audience have already opted. Sir, can you change the slide? Yes. So globalization and new trends in Indian English literature. The era of globalization has brought many changes in the socio-political, cultural and many other aspects of the world. New norms and rules changed the living style and priorities of people, and modernism and the postmodernism has influenced the new inventions and discoveries in the various fields of sciences. And this has also diverted the mindset of people from religion to the science, and they've started people have started thinking radically, and they have become more rational, which have brought about a change in the living style of people and their idea about life. The feministic and the post-feministic movements also brought changes in the lives of the women all over the world. And culture is the fundamental aspect of the society. It cannot be separated from it. I mean, we cannot separate culture from society. So a culture is the sharing of knowledge and values preferred by the group of society. Now, how globalization has brought many changes in the norms, values, ethics, and morals of society. Globalization had mainly triggered the economy of the countries, which in turn has brought about changes in the cultures of the society. And it is known that culture is the backbone of the society or the identity of a particular group in the society. So the cultural globalization has its own genesis in the migration, and migration has brought about the weakening of national boundaries. So migration brought about the exchanging of the cultures, resulting in multiculturalism, in which and which paved way and favored the mixing of the two or more cultures to form a different culture, especially in the metro cities. So a person is identified by his culture and in all its essence, but globalization is seen erasing this form of identity to form a new identity through the amalgamation of different cultures. And India, being the land of attraction, attracted many foreign people who tried to invade this rule and all. So the rulers also left their pug marks of the culture while leaving the country and all. So moreover, globalization has brought about mass migration, and this is how culture got dispersed and began to get mixed. Now, India has always been the admirer of foreign culture and its lifestyle. Many Indians migrated there, and this provoked them to, and the migration provoked them to adopt their culture. The native Indians also got attracted towards the Western culture, and they began they began changing themselves in social, cultural, and psychological modes of the country where they are living in. And literature, being the mirror of society, canvassed the picture of the society. So this started the new literary trend in Indian English writing altogether, and developing rapidly with the rapid change in the society. The new genres like the ethnic literature and like the graphic literature, chick literature, popular literature, many much are there, which are and very multidisciplinary and multidimensional forms of writings came into prominence, and the Indian writers expressed their thoughts in a very new manner. they started expressing that in a very new form of style. Writing styles came into being, genres came into being, which comforted them, because somewhere these genres, the writers who migrated also adopted the and expressed their feelings through their writings, and these migrated Indian writers began to be called as the diaspora writers, who had the themes to express their problems and experiences living in foreign country. So the new writers came up with the novels and poetries of new trends, with new themes, new styles, like writers like Jhumpa Lahiri, then Salman Rushdie, Kiran Desai, Chitra Banerjee, Bharti Mukherjee, Tabish Khair, Sujata Bhatt, and all others explored the themes like multiculturalism, displacement, alienation, uprootedness, question of identity, homesickness. These were the main themes. So the women you could see in the modern trends are not talking about tradition. They are not talking about money matter. They are not talking about domestic thing, but they have their own challenges. There are a lot of examples, like in Kiran Desai's The Inheritance Loss. It's a Booker Prize novel. Again, question of identity. V.S. Naipaul's The House of Mr. Biswas. Again, it's about the quest of identity. So themes of migration, alienation, these themes have never brought the glory in the life of the writers, but yes, it has brought a different change in the writing style and to portray the characters. The characters are not reflected in the dilemma of their domestic things only, but they are into the dilemma and they are into some other worldly issues. So this is something new change which one could see is there in it's a new trend in Indian English writing, the migrated writers and the diasporic writers and all. So if you could I don't know how many of you are aware about the chick lit genre. So this new genre got flourished in this age of globalization, and this is known as chick lit genre. The genre can be said as the offspring of globalization. And as globalization has brought many changes in the world as well as in the Indian society, it has also imparted some rights and freedom to the women. So women got more empowered and enjoyed freedom in this era. And the writers of the chick literature genre expressed their hidden emotions, aspirations, and their feelings in a free way in their literature. So the Indian writers like Rajshri, Swati Kaushal, Advaita Kala, Preeti Shinoy, Rupa Gulab, Anuja Chauhan, they depict their female protagonist as a free bird, solo bird, and bold, courageous women taking their own decisions and financially independence. These are the women, those who are working into new commercial industries. They are working into BPOs, banking sectors, and MNCs, and on a good post. But this genre on one hand reveal women urges and their demand in this new globalized society. So their psychological needs need to be adjusted. Their challenges are different. The languages used in these novels are very simple, and this in a very natural way the languages are used, and such kind of literature are actually one of the reasons of popularity. Why? Because if you see, like Swati Kaushal's, there's this novel Piece of Cake in 2011. It's a big hit even today because it depicts the corporate life of the protagonist and the cutthroat competition with the male counterparts. And Advait Kala's Almost Single in 2009, it has acclaimed a wide popularity, and thousands of copies sold immediately, and still it's very famous because of its various diverse themes of globalization are reflected into this contemporary literature. So today's literature does not seem like a classic, or it doesn't have any classical strata, but these are very handy and very quick read in this busy age of globalization. It gives a quick entertainment in less time, and does this new economic policies in the age of globalization had been seen influencing this literary arena itself. So these are the new genres which one could you can find out, and one could go through it. So next slide. Okay. So I told you in the beginning itself that the topic we've chosen is very vast, but I'm trying to just comprise it very quickly. So there are some more avenues to dive in with Indian English writings. First, translation is as a new trend in literature, because the strive for translation of regional literature into English became the new trend in literature in the 21st century. For example, the entire work of Munshi Premchand and Rabindranath Tagore, Vijay Tendulkar, or Subramaniam Bharati. These are all now available on in the entire world. In Odia literature, also the novels of Fakir Mohan Senapati have been translated into English. The local culture, the colloquial language, and the socio-economic conditions of Odisha of that time is now well known to everybody. So it is a good sign that people in the world are coming closer to each other, and exchange of ideas, traditions, and cultures are now possible only because of the translation of regional literature into English. Like Kesawa Reddy's He Conquered the Jungle, Sundar Ramaswamy's Tale of a Tamarind Tree, Anant Murthy Samsera. These are all great contribution to literature in English translation. And at this point of time, a unique trend of women writers have emerged into national scene. Mahashweta Devi of West Bengal is an activist and a writer who have championed the cause of marginalized tribal people in West Bengal. She has written the novel called Draupadi, depicting the exploitation of tribal women. Another interesting part of the creative translation is the work of Girish Karnar in the plays Tughlaq, showing the historical and social problem faced by the country. Vijay Tendulkar's Silence the Court is in Session. Beautiful play. Shantatah Court Chalu Hai. It is in Marathi, translated into Hindi, played, enacted several times on stage. Very famous, and shows so much about society, about female, about the all the perspectives of the society. So translation has actually been a boon to the society, and specifically to Indian English writings. Now, next, emergence of Dalit and biographical literature. Dalit literature and Dalit writers are the new trends. Definitely, these are found in majorly found in this post-independence period, and their work of distinction can be made in regard, like Ompuri Valmiki's Juthan and Bama's Karuku. These writers remove the gap between fact and fiction, and they have presented their autobiographies so vividly that it appears to be great fiction. And another remarkable play of Mahesh Dattani and Manjula Padmanabham, they portrays the character far from the mainstream of literature. And the autobiographical works of APJ Abdul Kalam Azad, The Wings of Fire, that became an inspirational turning point for youth. No doubt it is considered as a political overtone, but a guiding spirit for the Indian youth, for a better India. So besides Kalam, every Indian president and PM of India has a certain story of him or her. But industrialists like J.R.D. Tata, Dhirubhai Ambani, Aditya Birla, actors like Rajnikant, they too have special place among the biographers. And these biographies have become popular amongst the modern generation today. The next would be post-colonial perspectives have also impacted the critical and the creative aspects of Indian English fiction. So how the colonial rulers created a particular image of their subject races to perpetrate their hold on them forms an important feature of the emerging form of narratives. Now, contemporary writers hailing from the previously colonized nations, particularly India, they explore forms of life that existed during the British rule. They also expose the subtle strategies employed to make the colonialized people to take their subjugated position as something natural and transcendental. So these writers also bring out the functioning of almost the same power politics that defines the relation between the power wielding people and the people kept at the margins, even after the end of political imperialism. Then diasporic writers like Bharti Mukherjee, Chitra Divakurni Banerjee, Jhumpa Lahiri, and Kiran Desai, they have different windows on the world of their lives in India and abroad. They all too share the common concerns of Indian writers in terms of cultural bondings and bindings that help and also hinder us from evolving into a higher level of life, especially a higher standard of peaceful life for all Indians all over the world. So Jhumpa Lahiri is the interpreter of maladies, has smacks of diseases. I mean, Kiran Desai's The Inheritance of Loss is a poignant story in which an Indian is unable to live here, there, or anywhere for the social and political forces against him. Most of these women have seem to be free from economic worries and traditional worries. Moral dilemmas are resulting them into some incompatible marriages. So there are different challenges, as I told you. Now marriage and life and domesticity, they does not seem to be a issue for them. That is not the ultimate goal for their life, but traditional moral values are somewhere there. The new aspects of women experience different feminist understanding in the expression in the novels of Nayantara Sehgal, if you see Shobha De, Kamla Markande, but Anita Nair, Manju Kapoor, then Geeta Hariharan, Kiran Sahni, so many females, and they are having the same common issue despite of not that only kitchen whole thing or the relationship or their marriage and all, but more than that. And the another significant development that brings out a perceptible change in India, in Indian English fiction, is the depiction of cross-cultural context. So earlier this theme was mainly concerned with the conflicting aspects of the East and West, and Indian life was presented to highlight its exotic features, and that had a specific appeal for the Western readers. And the Western reason and the scientific point of view that juxtaposed against the Indian perspective governed by faith in spiritualism and highly emotional response to life that formed the major thrust in the writings of earlier Indian fiction writers. And it also tended to create specific cultural stereotypes representing two major cultures coming in close contact due to political compulsion. So the understanding that governed the depiction of this theme was usually based on the perspective that viewed life in very binary terms, and the essential qualities of both the cultures were considered to result in the conflicts. The difference between the Eastern and Western culture depicted in this kind of fiction were treated to be fundamental, transcendental, and eternal. Then the trend of magic realism, again, it's said that where there is the magic realism is very conspicuous, and the trend of magic realism I'm not getting the word, sorry. So the emergence of magic realism has actually led to the weakening of tradition of social realism. And M.K. Naik has very aptly said that magic realism is a jealous mistress. Once you set up a house with her, social realism becomes an unwelcomed guest. So this is, how Salman Rushdie's first novel, The Midnight Children, which won the Booker of Booker's Prize is an outstanding example of the trend of magic realism. So although he employed this technique in his subsequent novels, such as Satanic Verses, then The Moor's Last Sigh, there are a lot of novels. So when he wrote this Midnight Children in this genre, it was not as successful, but slowly and gradually people understood the genre, and then it became a real hit. So Shashi Tharoor's first novel, The Great Indian Novel, then Boman Desai's The Memory of Elephants, and then Amitav Ghosh, The Circle of Reason, and what are the novels? Kiran Nagarkar's Ravan and Edley, Angels in Pajamas, then there is this Vikram Chandra's Red Earth and Pouring Rain, and Makran Paranjap's the narrator are the typical examples of magic realism. So again, we can't deny the fact that yes, this has caught the hold of Indian English writing, though it is not completely social. It's not talking about society, societal terms. Then the subaltern consciousness, again, I think I mentioned in somewhere in this Dalit and biographical literature that how these two are interlinked and how it came into being, and the importance of the emergence of this particular trend. Then homosexuality in Indian English literature, yes, queer literature is a new trend in Indian English writing. It presents LGBTQ literary panorama in India. It roots in the literary tradition and Indian philosophy, and the Indian traditional literature is so ripe with sexually ambiguous characters that the writers like Ruth Vanita, Devdutt Patnaik, R. Raj Rao, they played vital role in the concerns of LGBTQ. And Indian society doesn't accept an idea of homosexuality, though the situation is different than earlier, but still it is not that big taboo now. But yes, the Indians think that same-sex love relationship is a Western concept, and homosexuality, same-sex love has been a part of past Indian culture. Whereas Arjun and Lord Narada are fine examples of transgender from ancient epic Mahabharata. Kama Sutra is also early reference of lesbianism. The female novelists like Kamala Das, Shobha De, Ruth Vanita, and Mala Kumar and Abha Davesar, they have contributed for queer literature. And queer literature people are segregated from society as well as their own family. They are mistreated. They struggle for their search of identity. And society must respect their feelings. Views on writing on various novelists and their writings in Indian English literature that reflect the truth, Indian reality, which gets the global attention. A marked shift is there in the fictional concerns and the emerging. For example, if there are novelists like Salman Rushdie, Amitav Ghosh, and Shobha De who have explored new themes in a different way. There are novelists like Rohinton Mistry also concentrating on contemporary social reality from traditional realistic perspective. So I think I'll end up my thing with this today by stating that yes, till today, whatever is being added today is the new development in Indian English writing. If so, these are all the themes, and these are the somehow the all these writers are showing us the mirror of the society somewhere or the other. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Thank you so much. I don't know how much I made this sense like in the session, but it's too wide. Again, there are a lot of aspects, perspectives, which I might have not touched even. Maybe some other time. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. If you have any queries regarding the session, it is discussion time now. Anshika ma'am will be available for discussion, right, ma'am?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing Indian writing to the limelight today. It's the most forgotten topic nowadays.
This is the area, I mean, which is very vast and which is very relatable to us, especially as Indians. I mean, we could relate everything in terms of the socio-political or economic perspective. If not, we are inspired by any of the Indian themes. But yes, I mean, this is very close to my heart. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the cooperation.
Yeah, I think there is a question.
Otherwise, I would have been lost.
It's okay.
I don't know
So
what
you
was
missed it.
happening. But I've heard, like somebody suggested, no, then it clicked to my mind that I've heard that sometimes Google Meet doesn't show that slideshow. I could
It
see that.
depends on the internet connectivity. Now they have improved a lot, but connectivity speed is very important. Net speed. I think there is an
Ma'am, there is a
observation and
question.
some questions. There are some questions also.
Yeah.
Should we read
Can
them
we
to
still,
you?
first question, sorry, Indian English writing has come to stay in English, stands globally recognized works by Tharur, Adiga, Anita, Arundhati, Steve, Occidental and Oriental writers of North Depression. Can we still say there is a so-called East-West encounter, ma'am? See, till now, I could say that the Indian English writing, if you could witness and if you could read the history of Indian English writing, you could see that there is lot of shift in these. I mean, this is not a very old writing. I told you that this doesn't have a big history, but we can see a big shift. Till now, East and West encounter is still there, but I can, and you know, as the critics, as the researchers, I mean, this hasn't been promised yet that it would be separable, but still it's there. And I don't know about the future, will it continue, but seeing the changing scenarios and changing trends, maybe it could go. But as of now, yes, it's still there, East-West encounter, because somewhere we talk about the diasporic, maybe the writers, if we talk about Jhumpa Lahiri, if we talk about Anita Desai, these being diasporic writers, these are the first generation diasporic writers. Maybe the second generation or the third generation diasporic writers, they would eradicate this East-West encounter, but as of now, we have. Hi, ma'am. Can you please give
in
some
this, I would like to give my observation regarding
Yeah.
East-West encounter.
Yeah.
This cannot be totally avoided as it is because of our cultural differences. So India is a solidarity-oriented country, whereas Western culture is an individual-oriented society. So we are slowly turning into a individual-oriented society. That happens in the cities and call centers and things like that. They give importance to their individual lives, but as a whole, to have such a change, it is not possible.
It's not
Or it will
possible.
take years. So
Again,
therefore,
I'm
this will
telling you.
continue to.
Yes, sir. Till now,
That's
we have never witnessed, till present scenario. I mean, we have never witnessed that this encounter is absent. But you never know about the future. But it seems really not possible. So East-West encounter is always there, and it would be there. Can you please give some details on retelling of myths in Indian English literature? Thank you, sir. So, retelling of myths, see, this is again one of the major area of research also nowadays, where the adaptation from the our old epics is being taken in Indian English writings, particularly the novels. And like, I don't know how many of you are aware about Chitra Devakurni's Kunti. Okay, so in that also she's talking with the myth. They are taking the real life experiences, and they are trying to show the what you may call the logics behind and the science behind those mythologies, what we have been witnessing like a religion, okay, since ages. But now these myths are in a separate, and thanks to, again I would say, thanks to our authors and thanks to our modern authors rather, they've been bringing out all those logics and acknowledgements which we so, am I clear?
The last part we missed. The audio wasn't there.
Okay, I think the network, it's showing that it's unstable maybe.
Yeah. In spite of that, it was a very steady, stable presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a request. Your presentation was very comprehensive, and we can use it for giving it to these students and for our research also. So, if you are sharing it, it would be a
I'll do that.
Thank you.
I sent it to sir also, but I'll share it, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
There is also an observation. I think it is an answer to Mr. Lawrence. Dr. Sugandhi has written something. I even doubt whether it could be justified when we apply Western theories to analyze Indian works. Yeah. We always work on borrowed.
And don't you think that it's a very wide variety?
There is the fact that there can be cultural conflicts. That's true. But when we take literature as it is, there should not be any sort of encounter like this, because we are on the we are playing with the language. So language should be universal, and the content that we convey through our works should be global, and it should be appreciated and acknowledged by those who read and appreciate it.
So it does, but here we are talking about the trends. I mean, if the author is belonging, he or she is somewhere the native of India, so it's always said that the style of the author comes into the writing, right? So the you can find out that soil, or you can find out some, particles in their writings, or you can understand the cultural context would be always there, and it cannot be missed out. It's my opinion. I mean, is while reading Mulkura Janan or while reading R.K. Narayan, we can just make it out the cultural context very clearly, the traditions and all those things. So that is how encounters come in. I mean, not deliberately. I'm sure that these doesn't come deliberately. Like Jhumpa Lahiri, she wasn't born in India. She didn't visited India also, and her mother was there, and she was a complete American. But she has somewhere the values, she has somewhere that culture in her that came into her writing. She married to an Italian, and there also she found some alienation and identity crisis. Why? So I think that, these things cannot be missed. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong also, but this is my observation. Till now, I can't personally state that it will go. As a reader, yes, we are studying as a part of literature, and also that without keeping our judgments aside, we can do that as a story. But when it comes to analysis, we can't analyze without all these, keeping these things aside.
Okay, ma'am.
And there is a problem also, Mr. Lawrence, when we apply the universal theory of language, we miss the real enjoyment of what do you call it, the Sthala Purana. That is the literature that belongs to one particular culture. So socio-cultural pragmatics should be applied in order to understand literature from a particular culture, even though it is written in English. So English is handy for Indians to express their Sthala Purana, their story. But when it comes to cultural Indian culture is unique for ourselves, and that culture be analyzed only through socio-cultural pragmatics, not language pragmatics,
That's
not by
true,
analyzing pure grammar and literature.
Yes, I
There is a
understand that.
difference.
When we talk about culture, there are, of course, differences that we cannot do away with. But at the same time, in terms of the language, I think there should not be any sort of encounter. Let's hope at least that there is no such encounter in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, shall we, is there any other questions?
No.
Okay, so it's time for the formal word of thanks. Thank you, Anshika ma'am, for your time and contribution despite the climatic issues and the network issues. You did an amazing job, ma'am. So we are extremely thankful for your inputs and showing us more avenues to dive in Indian English writing. And thank you for bringing this topic because we always forget them in very Western literature and all. We are always looking for Western things. Still, it is a trend. But still, we have to understand what we have. Our Indian literature should not be forgotten. They should be remembered. It must be researched. People should come into Indian literature too. So yeah.
I thank the organizers for calling me, and thank you, Dr. Justin, again for having that faith in me. I mean, he was like, you should do it. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Because I
thank you,
I particularly included this topic because, I was neglecting Indian literature while I was in India and teaching literature there. But when I left India, I started living abroad. I realized how it is important. Indian literature is second to none in the world. So my PhD is on Indian literature. So even though my specialization is ELT and ICT, teaching English through internet technology, but my PhD is on Indian writing in English. So that's the reason why particularly I wanted to include this particular topic, and this will greatly help the teachers.
That was a good topic indeed.
Yeah, and I wish I had your memory.
Thank you, sir.
That is remembering so much of things, and I thank Mr. Lawrence for his very active participation. He has been actively participating in all the sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for suggesting also. I mean, he was there.
See you tomorrow then. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, see you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So thus we are concluding our third day of International Faculty Development Program, and we shall meet tomorrow for more academic contemplations. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.